You don't need another year. You don't need another big plan. What you need is 90 days. That's it. Just 90 days of full commitment to one thing, not a wish, not a half effort, commitment. Because commitment is the moment you stop negotiating with your excuses. Most people never change because they wait for perfect conditions. They wait for motivation. But here's the truth. Change doesn't wait for you. Change meets you when you move. It shows up when you do. It rewards those who stay the course long after the initial excitement fades. Commitment beats motivation because motivation is temporary, fleeting, and often unreliable. It's easy to start something when you're feeling inspired, energized, or emotionally moved, but the real test comes on the days when those feelings are absent. Motivation can get you to the gym on the first day or push you to open that book or write that business plan. But what happens when you wake up tired? What happens when you're overwhelmed or when life punches you in the face with stress, fear, or failure? That's where commitment steps in. Commitment isn't based on how you feel, it's based on what you've decided. When you commit to something, you declare that it will get done no matter what. Whether the sun shines or it rains, whether people support you or doubt you, whether you're inspired or drained, your actions don't change. Commitment builds character, it forges discipline, it teaches you to push through when your mind begs you to quit. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Commitment says, I'll do it anyway. People often think that successful individuals are motivated all the time. That's not true. What separates those who make progress from those who don't is their ability to act without needing to feel inspired. Commitment builds a deeper connection to your goal. It's a promise to your future self, a form of self-respect. It's saying, I believe in where I'm going so much that I will endure the discomfort, silence the doubt, and keep walking no matter what obstacles arise. Motivation is often reactive. It responds to a video, a quote, a song, or a person. It's an external spark. Commitment is internal. It's a flame you keep alive through repetition, routine, and resolve. While motivation can get knocked down by a bad mood, criticism, or inconvenience, commitment stands firm. You don't have to be in the mood to follow through when you're committed. You just have to be loyal to your word. Committing to something also builds self-trust. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you show yourself that you're dependable. You begin to believe in your own power. You no longer rely on hype or perfect conditions. You create results through action. That's how progress becomes inevitable. When you move beyond motivation and operate from commitment, you develop a mindset that doesn't wait for permission to grow. This mindset separates winners from wishers. The person who waits for the right time will always be waiting. The person who is committed starts where they are, uses what they have, and works through every challenge that comes up. They show up on the hard days, they work through boredom, and they execute through adversity. That kind of person is unstoppable, not because they're always inspired, but because they've decided to honor their vision no matter what. So stop chasing motivation, stop waiting to feel like it, commit. Choose one thing that matters to you and follow through daily, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, every day. Even if it's just a small action, do it with intention. Do it with integrity, and watch how you transform, not just your results, but your identity. You'll start seeing yourself differently, not as someone who tries, but as someone who follows through, and that belief will become your new foundation. Because when commitment leads, motivation follows. When discipline is your default, progress is your reward. And when you master showing up regardless of how you feel, you become the kind of person who doesn't just start things, you finish them. 90 days of consistent action has the power to completely rewire your identity. It's not just about habits or routines. It's about who you become through relentless commitment. When you show up for yourself daily, without skipping, without negotiating, you begin to shift the way you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who tries and starts seeing yourself as someone who follows through. The power lies not in perfection, but in consistency. It's the discipline of doing the small things over and over again until they no longer feel like effort. They become part of who you are. Every day you act in alignment with the person you want to become. You're casting a vote for that identity. One workout, one healthy meal, 1 hour of focused work, one act of self-control, it all counts. These moments may feel small and insignificant in isolation, but collectively they rewire your internal narrative. Instead of telling yourself, "I never finish anything," you begin to tell yourself, "I keep my word." And over time, that shift in self-perception becomes permanent. This is not about changing your life overnight. This is about proving to yourself, over and over again, that you are capable of consistency. The brain is wired to adapt. Through repetition and focused intention, neural pathways strengthen. The more you repeat an action, the easier it becomes. Your identity begins to align with your behavior. It's not wishful thinking. It's neuroscience. Doing something consistently for 90 days doesn't just create a new routine. It teaches your brain a new normal. You move from resistance to momentum, from excuses to standards, and that's where real change lives. Not in inspiration, but in repetition. The beauty of 90 days is that it's long enough to produce real change, but short enough to be tangible. It's a season of sacrifice that leads to a lifetime of benefit. When you commit to doing something every single day for 3 months, you face every emotional state: motivation, boredom, resistance, fatigue, pride. And when you keep showing up through it all, your self-image transforms. You stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks and start viewing them as tests of your commitment. Your mind shifts from "can I do this?" to "this is who I am." What once felt like a struggle begins to feel automatic. You stop needing motivation to take action because the action itself has become part of your identity. You start making choices aligned with your goals, not out of pressure, but out of habit. The friction disappears. Confidence grows, not from hype, but from evidence. You become confident not because someone told you to be, but because you've shown up for yourself repeatedly. That's the kind of belief that doesn't break under pressure. This shift in identity has ripple effects. When you see yourself as disciplined, consistent, and focused, you start raising your standards in other areas of life. You say no to things that don't serve you. You surround yourself with people who match your energy. You handle setbacks differently, not with self-doubt, but with resilience, because now your identity is rooted in action, not emotion. At the end of 90 days, you don't just have new habits, you have a new foundation. You've proved that you can honor your word, fight through excuses, and make growth a priority. You've stopped hoping for change and started embodying it. That kind of transformation doesn't fade when the 90 days are over. It sticks because it's no longer about what you do. It's about who you are. And when your identity shifts, everything else follows. Discomfort is an inevitable and necessary part of any meaningful transformation. It's the place where growth begins, where comfort zones end, and where character is refined. When you pursue change, whether it's physical, emotional, professional, or spiritual, you will meet discomfort. And that's a good sign. It means you're doing something that stretches you, something that challenges the version of you that has kept you stuck or stagnant. Comfort might feel safe, but it rarely leads to anything extraordinary. Discomfort, on the other hand, is the birthplace of progress. Most people avoid discomfort because they associate it with failure, pain, or uncertainty. But discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your guide. It shows you where the work is. It highlights what needs to be strengthened, healed, or redefined. Every time you resist the urge to retreat and instead face the discomfort head on, you build resilience. You train yourself to be present even when it's hard. That ability is what separates those who only dream of change from those who actually achieve it. Discomfort shows up in many forms. It's the fatigue during a workout, the awkward silence in a difficult conversation, the vulnerability of starting over, the anxiety of stepping into the unknown. These are not signals to stop. They are signals that you're on the right path. Growth demands a shedding of old habits, beliefs, and sometimes even relationships. That shedding is uncomfortable but necessary. You can't carry who you were into who you're becoming. There is no shortcut around discomfort. Trying to skip it, numb it, or deny it only prolongs the process. True change comes when you lean into the discomfort, when you sit with it long enough to understand what it's teaching you. It might be showing you how attached you've become to routine. It might reveal fears you didn't know you had. It might confront you with your own self-doubt. But every uncomfortable moment is also an invitation to evolve, to dig deeper, to rise. Endurance is built in those moments where quitting seems easier. When you keep going through discomfort, you create evidence that you can handle more than you thought. You build a track record of perseverance, and that becomes the foundation of confidence. Confidence doesn't come from everything going smoothly. It comes from knowing you can keep moving forward, even when it doesn't. And once you've proven that to yourself a few times, discomfort loses its power to intimidate you. People often wait until they feel ready or feel motivated to act. But growth doesn't wait. Discomfort is not a sign that you're unprepared. It's often a sign that you're exactly where you need to be. When you stop fearing discomfort, you start unlocking parts of yourself that were lying dormant. You become more courageous, more disciplined, more intentional. And with each step through discomfort, your threshold for challenge increases. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once triggered fear now triggers focus. Eventually, you begin to see discomfort not as something to dread, but as something to expect, even embrace. It becomes a familiar companion in your journey. You learn to coexist with it not because it gets easier, but because you get stronger. The muscles of your mind, your will, and your heart all grow in tension. And just like in physical training, the soreness is a sign that growth is happening. Discomfort is not punishment. It's preparation. It's the pressure that turns coal into diamonds, the heat that purifies gold. If you want to step into your next level, you must be willing to stay present in the discomfort long enough for it to do its work. And when you come out on the other side, you'll carry a quiet kind of strength, the kind that's earned, not given. Self-trust isn't built through grand gestures or life-changing moments. It's forged in the small, daily decisions you make when no one is watching. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, no matter how small it may seem, you're casting a vote for the version of you that is dependable, disciplined, and worthy of trust. It's easy to overlook these small actions because they don't come with applause or recognition. But it's exactly those quiet choices that compound into unshakable confidence and self-belief. Waking up when your alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze, choosing water over soda, finishing a task you started. Turning off your phone to focus, saying no when you mean no. These moments might appear insignificant in the moment, but they're the bricks that build the foundation of self-trust. Every time you act in alignment with your values or your goals, you're affirming to yourself that your word matters, that you can rely on yourself, that your actions are in harmony with your intentions. When you break promises to yourself, when you say you'll start something and don't, when you aim to show up and cancel on yourself, you create micro-fractures in your relationship with yourself. Over time, these small fractures turn into self-doubt. You start questioning your ability to follow through. You hesitate to set new goals because you fear you'll abandon them. That's why the daily follow-through matters so much. It repairs those fractures. It reinforces a new identity, someone who finishes, someone who keeps going, someone who can be trusted. The beauty of small daily actions is that they are within your control. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need to decide that you matter enough to keep showing up. Whether it's journaling for 5 minutes, walking for 10, reading a page, or simply making your bed, these moments become rituals of self-respect. They say, I care about my growth. And even if no one else sees the effort, you do, and that's what counts. Consistency doesn't mean never missing a beat. It means returning to your commitments even after you fall off track. That act of returning is powerful. It teaches your brain that setbacks aren't the end of the road. They're just part of the journey. And every time you come back, you strengthen that muscle of discipline. You prove that you don't give up on yourself. That kind of resilience cannot be taught. It must be practiced, day by day, choice by choice. Small actions also give you a sense of control in a world that often feels chaotic. They remind you that while you can't dictate outcomes, you can influence them. You can create momentum, and momentum, even when it starts small, builds over time. What begins as a single daily habit can lead to an entire lifestyle shift. You stop needing external motivation because your internal compass gets stronger. You know that you'll show up, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are becoming. This is how self-trust becomes unshakable. Not through perfection, but through persistence. Not through massive leaps, but through steady steps. You don't need to prove anything to anyone else. You only need to prove to yourself that you're willing to keep choosing the small things that align with the life you want. Over time, those small things become big changes, and those big changes become a reflection of your integrity, your self-respect, and your quiet power. When you trust yourself, the world doesn't feel as intimidating. Challenges don't feel as heavy. You walk with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing your word means something. That trust, built through small daily actions, becomes the foundation of everything else. And once you have it, nothing can take it away. Change doesn't begin with a new location, a new job, or a different group of people. It begins with your habits. Many people spend their lives waiting for the right environment, assuming that a shift in circumstances will suddenly unlock their potential. But the truth is, your environment can only offer opportunity. It's your habits that shape who you become. You can move across the world, surround yourself with different people, or have access to new resources. But if your habits stay the same, you'll produce the same results. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They dictate how you think, how you respond, and what you ultimately achieve. The most powerful form of self-transformation doesn't come from what's outside of you, but from the repeated choices you make every day. You may find inspiration in a new space, but it's consistency in your routines, those small, often overlooked actions, that will determine whether you grow or remain stuck. People often hope that a new environment will magically instill discipline, confidence, or motivation. But if you don't already have the habits that reflect those qualities, the environment won't sustain your growth. A person without direction will drift no matter how ideal the setting may be. On the other hand, someone with strong, intentional habits can thrive even in less than ideal conditions. It's not about where you are. It's about how you show up wherever you are. Changing your habits doesn't require a massive overhaul overnight. It begins with awareness, recognizing the patterns that no longer serve you and consciously replacing them with choices that align with your goals. A 5-minute morning routine can ground your entire day. Choosing water over soda is a vote for health. Limiting screen time before bed is a step toward mental clarity. These are small decisions, but over time they accumulate into massive shifts. When you rely on your environment to change you, you give away your power. You become dependent on things outside your control. But when you take responsibility for your habits, you reclaim that power. You stop waiting for ideal circumstances and instead become the kind of person who creates them. Habits give you structure in chaos, focus in distraction, and progress in stagnation. They are the roots that hold you steady in the storms of life. Even when you're placed in a difficult or negative environment, strong habits act as a shield. They protect your mind, your energy, and your purpose. You start to understand that your daily rituals are your safe space. No matter what happens externally, you have something internal to return to. That's the foundation of true resilience, not being untouched by the world, but being grounded enough in your habits that the world doesn't shake you easily. Habits also create identity. The more you show up for yourself, the more you believe in your ability to do so. You don't need to convince yourself with empty affirmations. You prove it through action. And that consistent action changes the way you see yourself. You start identifying as someone who follows through, someone who prioritizes growth, someone who does what needs to be done even when it's uncomfortable. That identity shift is what sustains long-term transformation. If you want to change your life, start by changing your habits. Don't wait for your environment to inspire you. Inspire yourself through repetition, discipline, and intention. Habits are the truest reflection of your commitment to yourself. They're not always glamorous or exciting, but they are effective. And over time, they become the difference between who you are and who you could be. It's tempting to believe that if you were just in a different place, around different people, with different opportunities, your life would finally fall into place. That everything would make sense, motivation would flow, and success would come easily. But the truth is, change doesn't happen because your surroundings shift. It happens because you do. Your habits, the small repeated actions you take every single day, are what shape your identity, your progress, and your outcomes. Without new habits, even the most ideal environment will eventually feel like the old one. Because if you carry the same mindset, the same routines, and the same patterns into a new space, you'll create the same results. Environment might influence you temporarily, giving you a spark of inspiration or a surge of motivation. But that feeling fades. What remains is how you show up when no one is watching. Habits are what you return to when the excitement wears off. They are the quiet decisions you make that no one applauds, but that build the strongest foundations. If you don't change your habits, you won't change your life. And if you do change your habits, you can transform your life, no matter where you are. It's easy to blame a place, a job, or a relationship for why things aren't working. It's harder to look inward and recognize that the way you spend your mornings, the way you react to challenges, the way you treat your body and your time, that's what's really holding you back or pushing you forward. New surroundings might remove distractions or reduce stress for a while, but lasting change only happens when you commit to doing the hard, consistent work of shaping new habits. Every habit you build is a vote for the person you want to become. When you choose to get up on time, when you choose to read instead of scroll, when you prepare your meals instead of ordering out, when you reflect instead of react, you're telling yourself that you're in control. You're choosing growth over comfort, and it's that kind of repetition, done quietly daily, that changes who you are on a fundamental level. Habits create structure, and structure is what frees you. When your life has rhythm, you don't have to constantly battle indecision or emotional turbulence. You know what to do next because you've trained yourself to do it. That creates a sense of internal stability that no external environment can give. You become the kind of person who brings focus into chaos, discipline into distraction, and direction into uncertainty. That's real power, not relying on your surroundings to shape you, but using your habits to shape your world. Even in the best environments without habits, you'll fall back into cycles of procrastination, comparison, and inconsistency. But with strong habits, even in the worst environments, you can stay grounded, clear, and focused. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems, and your systems are built from your habits. They're what carry you on the days when motivation is gone and life feels heavy. They're what ensure you keep going, even when progress is slow. Changing your life starts with one decision, followed by 1,000 small actions. You don't need to escape your current environment to begin. You just need to begin where you are, with what you have, and commit to building habits that align with the life you say you want. Over time, Those habits will elevate you beyond your circumstances. They will become your new environment, an internal one that no one can take away. That's where real change begins and where it becomes permanent. Transformation doesn't happen on days when everything feels easy and motivation is high. It happens in the moments when you feel tired, overwhelmed, or simply don't want to continue. Showing up consistently, especially when your mind is screaming to quit, is the true mark of change. It's easy to show up when you're inspired, when the path seems clear and the rewards are visible. But lasting transformation demands more. It demands that you push through resistance, discomfort, and doubt. That's where the real growth begins. The most successful people are not those who avoid struggle or never face setbacks. They are the ones who recognize that discomfort is part of the process and decide to move forward anyway. They choose to show up even on the days they don't feel like it, because they understand that progress isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Transformation is a long journey filled with ups and downs, and every small effort made during difficult times adds up. When you commit to showing up consistently, you're rewiring your mindset. You begin to build resilience, self-discipline, and an unshakable foundation that supports your goals. This struggle is natural, but it doesn't have to stop you. When you force yourself to show up during moments of doubt or exhaustion, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you believe. Each time you follow through despite resistance, you strengthen your confidence and expand your limits. Over time, this builds a momentum that carries you forward, even when motivation is scarce. It's the act of showing up repeatedly that transforms you from someone who dreams about change into someone who lives it. Sometimes the hardest part is simply starting. The resistance in your mind can convince you that skipping one day won't matter or that you deserve a break. But transformation doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It demands that you show up and take action regardless of how you feel. The discipline to show up becomes a muscle that grows stronger with each use. Just like physical strength is built through repeated effort in the gym, mental and emotional strength develop through the consistent choice to show up, especially when it's uncomfortable. Showing up also means being honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to go. It means acknowledging your weaknesses and fears without letting them dictate your actions. It means accepting that failure and setbacks are part of the process, not reasons to give up. When you show up with this mindset, you create space for growth and transformation to occur naturally. You allow yourself to learn, adapt, and become better with each attempt. Transformation is rarely instant. It requires patience, trust in the process, and most importantly, the commitment to show up daily. It's the small choices repeated over time that create lasting change. Showing up when you don't want to is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who remain stuck. It's the silent victory that nobody sees, but that changes everything. No matter how difficult or discouraging things feel, remember that showing up is itself an act of transformation. It's the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. Each time you choose to face discomfort, push past doubt, and keep going, you move closer to the version of yourself you aspire to be. Transformation isn't reserved for the perfect moment or the ideal mindset. It's reserved for those willing to show up time and time again, even when they don't want to. That is where true change lies. The path to transformation is never easy, but it is always possible when you commit to showing up, even when you don't feel like it. True growth comes not from waiting for motivation or perfect conditions, but from persistence in the face of discomfort and doubt. Every small step taken despite resistance builds resilience, strength, and momentum. By choosing to show up consistently, you prove to yourself that change is within your power. Remember, transformation is a journey of patience and commitment, and the simple act of showing up is what ultimately leads you to become the person you aspire to be. Keep showing up, because that is where real change begins and lasts forever.